Tonight I'm just going to read a few poems and try to connect them together. Because the poems are a way of using language that's close to what we try to talk about in Buddhism. My first poem is one that's used, I'm told, in preschools, and it goes like this. It's recited or chanted before the kids go to pick up their toy or their game for the play period. Okay? And the teacher reminds them by saying this: you get what you get, and you don't get upset. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. This guy was saying that his daughter had to learn that. And it seems like good advice. Now, a more complicated poem. This is a poem that a man who teaches poetry, he's a critic and a scholar, who lives in New York. And this is the poem he turned to on the day that 9/11 happened. And it's a poem by W.H. Auden, who's a British poet of the 20th century. And it's called the Musée des Beaux-Arts, which is French for the Fine Arts Museum, Musée des Beaux-Arts. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position. How it takes place while someone else is eating, or opening a window, or just walking dully along. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course. Anyhow, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life, and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. W.H. Auden. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position. How it takes place while someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course. Anyhow, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. Okay, this last one is from a book called The Names of Birds by Tom Crawford. And he's a Pushcart and Pulitzer winner, who I haven't known before. It's one of these wonderful things. It's what I like about libraries. You stumble into something that's on display and grab at something you never would have seen before. each of these poems has birds in the subject, but this one is called The Toll Birds Take. You have to understand the toll birds take, perched or on the wing. Concentrated beauty is a war of nerves. One can enter you from any direction, and a fly-through, even by the common sparrow, can take out the heart. That's the nature of ambush, something that lies in wait, a nuthatch, walking perpendicular down a tree, dressed to kill. Ruined me for years. Now I take precautions, cover my eyes to the wood duck, stand back from the window in winter when the chickadees come to feed. Snow is a bad thing where any birds gather. So much color is always a show of force. Look at the ancient crow, a black glove on the landscape, one finger always mocking you. He was ugly, but when Herbie Poole stood up in class in the 8th grade and imitated the songs of several birds, including the difficult vireo, we were never the same. That was years ago, and he died. Don't birds die? Birds, above all things, who unnerve us just in passing, who leave us breathless and sad. I've often been going back to the idea of bird watching as an analogy for what we're doing in mindfulness and meditation. That is, we start noticing things. Before I started getting seduced by birding, and I'm not really a pro, I don't know the names of anything, and I don't keep one of those life lists that people have. But what happens is all of a sudden you notice the sound outside the window. You start seeing things like who has a white breast and who has a black eye patch, and who, as in that poem, who walks backwards down a tree, or who flutters above a feeder, and how the crows perch in the highest place and get ready to swoop down and defend their territory. It's all fascinating, and it's all invisible until you begin the practice of being mindful. And it's the same with our interior, with our minds and our bodies and our emotions, that this is what the practice is about, is noticing that interior landscape and how the thought or the feeling or the sensation moves across the landscape of your consciousness. How, the famous monkey mind saying, that Buddhist image of screeching monkeys jumping from tree to tree. It's a good description for what our mind feels like when we first start trying to meditate. We're just jumping from one thing to another. Starting with the first poem, you get what you get, and you don't get upset, is very good advice. Very catchy poem. We all keep raising the stakes on ourselves. We want a more important job title, or another degree, or a trophy wife, or a trophy kid, or a trophy lawn. But what if we just get what we get and we don't get upset? That's very, very good practice. And then we look at the Auden poem that this writer went to in New York on the day of 9/11, the Musée des Beaux-Arts. He's really describing one of the old masters' paintings, and I don't know if it's Hieronymus Bosch or one of the Dutch masters, where you have a very complicated landscape with all kinds of things going on in it. But that's the kind of painting he's describing. So that there can be this huge event, huge important event happening, and the torturer's horse is scratching its butt, in the corner of the photo. It's always the way it is. So there's these huge things that happen to us as people and as culture in our history. My era, we all remember the day John Kennedy was killed. I know exactly where I was. I was driving from Napa to Sonoma to take someone to a dentist appointment. And that I can remember the car, I can remember the other person, I can remember the dentist's office. So even on this huge historic day, someone's getting their teeth drilled, and someone's driving a 49 Ford. And finally, the poem about the birds. Again, I've already mentioned the analogy of birding really trains you to start noticing all sorts of things. And you get these weird little skills like being able to mimic a bird call. Many birders use little mnemonic devices, strings of nonsense words that imitate the call of certain birds. I haven't gone that far over the deep end, but it may be coming. It's just a practice. And it's a practice of mindfulness, and it's also, if you see a bunch of birders, they stand quite still, especially in the early morning, trying to see the waterfowl come in for a landing. And you have to stand still. And when you stand still, your breathing changes. You clamp down on your breathing. And you start noticing all sorts of things. How the light in the sky is gradually changing, and the color of the water surface is changing, and the silhouette of certain birds coming down. Is that a this or is that a that? Well, it has a split tail, so maybe it's, and so on and so forth. But it's all requires this quiet, careful attention. And that's what our practice is. Quiet, careful attention, undemanding. Maybe no birds show up that morning, so we get what we get, and we don't get upset.